Hello everyone, welcome to the market outlook for the week. Gaurang Shah here from Geojit Financial Services, and as I speak to all of you all this Monday morning at around about 10:15, we've seen some recovery from the lows of the day this morning. Before I go any further, let me give you certain levels on Sensex, Nifty, Bank Nifty, Rupee Dollar and crude oil. Sensex currently trading up with 35 points gain. Level is 81,215. Nifty marginally down, 5 points down. Level is 24,850. Bank Nifty up 80 odd points. Level is 50,660. And on the rupee dollar equation and crude oil, marginal strength on the rupee, and the level is 83.94 rupees to a dollar. Strength of 0.007 paise. On the crude oil front, decisive downtick that we've seen last week continues, but there is marginal recovery. Brent is trading at about $71.97 a barrel, and $68.60 to a barrel is NYMEX. So firstly, on the crude oil and rupee dollar equation, well, crude oil expected to be lower. There are two concerns. One is the production related news flows from the OPEC plus nation, and on the other side is the demand side downtick. Along with that, the news flow that we had last week in terms of certain crude oil from restricted countries coming into the market with some kind of resolution coming through. So overall, the crude oil prices are likely to stay lower, and they are much lower than the levels that we had spoken last week. We had mentioned that sub $70 on the NYMEX and sub $75 on Brent could be a much viable situation for countries like India, which are net importers of crude oil, and the levels currently what we are witnessing is way below the levels that we had expected on the lower side. So continue this lower side trend to stay here for a while, unless and until we have some kind of news flow on the negative side as far as the Middle East conflict situation is concerned. On the rupee dollar equation, last week we had mentioned that if we go closer to 83.90 and 84 rupees to a dollar, then we expect dollar supplies to come through, and we have seen some amount of dollar supply coming last week at elevated levels of 84 rupees to a dollar. Likely expected this week also, if we are able to go below, if the rupee is going to weaken against the dollar to the levels of 84, then we expect dollar supplies coming in from RBI as well as certain banks. Remains to be seen the quantum in terms of the strength in the rupee. So by and large, 84 is the level wherein we'll see dollar supply come in, and maybe possibly closer to 83.90 and 83.85 is the level to watch out for as far as strength is concerned on the rupee dollar equation. Coming to the markets now, friends. If you recollect, last week we had mentioned two levels on the lower side and two levels on the higher side. 25,000 and 24,800 on the lower side, and on the higher side possibly levels of 25,500 and 25,600. The bias was on the positive side, but however the markets have turned the other way, and the levels that we mentioned on the lower side, the second lower level that we had mentioned last week on the lower side was 24,800. This morning briefly we breached those levels of 24,800. We went to 24,750, 24,760 odd levels, but from those levels we have seen some recovery coming through. Well, what this indicates primarily is that we are possibly trading in an oversold zone. That means we could see some amount of buying coming in, value based buying coming in, and we could also witness some amount of shorts getting covered, which may add to the recovery on the higher side. But I think today is going to be very crucial. If we are able to maintain this level right now and give a close about 24,800, 24,850, then our sense is that this recovery is likely to continue for the remaining days of the week, and we could see some stability coming in. It is more important to see some stability coming in at this level rather than seeing some kind of huge recovery. The reason why we say this is because it will be prudent to have some consolidation and some buying coming in at lower level, maintaining the support zones of 24,800 on the Nifty spot. If we go below this, then possibly some more downside, a minor downside could be opened up. in which case we might see levels of 24,600 and 24,700, but looks a little bit preemptive right now in terms of those levels getting achieved, given the kind of buying that we are witnessing and the short covering coming through. News flows as far as markets are concerned, well, this week we'll see 12 IPOs hitting the street. 4 of them will be from the primary market and 8 of them will be from the SME segment. Just to put a word of caution, be careful as to what you are subscribing to in the SME segment, because we've seen some not so very positive news flows in the recent couple of IPOs that has hit the SME segment. In terms of the primary market, well, one of the IPOs which is keenly looking and it is opened up for subscription today is Bajaj Housing Finance. This IPO comes in from a strong pedigree group, presence in the sector. Already we've seen some strong names, but there is a lot of room for other players to come in and establish their footprints in the market, and of course the demand for housing loan segment, along with that of course loan against property, etc., etc. So we've seen some interesting moves coming in this housing finance segment, and I think Bajaj Housing Finance could be one of the strong competitors over there. In terms of the last week pressure that we saw was led by a couple of things. One was the sell side report from various FIs in certain segments, certain sectors. The second one was the implementation of new rules for the F&O segment by the SEBI. Remains to be seen how and when it gets implemented, either in totality or step by step. But I think what we've got to understand last week is that possibly by the end of this month the new rules will be put in place. We'll have to wait and watch, and that's primarily the reason why we saw a little bit of more sell side pressure in terms of anticipation of these new rules in the F&O segment coming through possibly by this month end. So that's going to be something that the market will be watching out for. GST Council meet today. Markets expecting some kind of relief in terms of some lower slabs in terms of certain categories. We'll have to wait for the outcome by the end of the day or maybe tomorrow as to what the GST Council has decided in terms of changes, if any. Unemployment data from the US and the more than expected anticipation of rate cuts. Well, what Mr. Powell, the Fed chair, has said at Jackson Hole meet last month was that September will be the month wherein you can expect some rate cuts to come through. No timeline in terms of date and no quantum in terms of how much rate cut will come through. So again, we'll have to wait and watch for that. And as and it happens, I think the markets will react to it accordingly. So primarily, friends, I think after seeing 2 weeks or a fortnight of rally from last week, we've seen some profit booking consolidation, and the result is that we are where we are. Recovery this morning tells me that there could be some amount of protection as far as lower level is concerned, where we are at somewhere close to about 24,800 on the Nifty spot, or plus minus 50-60 odd points. But closing above this level is something that is going to be very, very crucial. As always, we advise investors to look at investment ideas whenever markets give you this kind of opportunity in terms of correction. So this morning we have 2 investment ideas. First one is Bharti Airtel, second largest player in the cellular service provider category, with increasing number of subscriber base. And our anticipation is that by December 2024, we might see another tariff hike, which will possibly take ARPUs to the next level up, and possibly much higher maybe as we go forward from here on. Conservative target of 1,700, but targets will get revised in case if the earnings are much better than what we expect. The second one is from an interesting sector, because last week we had a lot of sell side recommendation from certain institutional investors, foreign institutional investors. Is the public sector bank, and the bank is the largest bank in India, State Bank of India. There were concerns last week with respect to the deposits mobilization, with respect to the margins, with respect to the loan book of tech, etc., etc. And we've heard some couple of downgrades in terms of targets for State Bank of India. Having said that, we remain extremely positive as far as the entire banking and financial universe is concerned, and we believe that public sector banks, after seeing some amount of traction in terms of investment opportunities, has corrected. This correction we identify as an investment idea, friends, and from a long-term point of view, we believe that the growth is not going to stop. We are talking about credit demand, and as we go forward from here on, slowly, steadily, we are going to see this credit demand going to an uptick. Hence, we believe that in all aspects, whether it is net interest income, margins, whether it is profitability, whether it is with respect to the gross net NPA provisioning, I think we are going to have some supportive numbers coming through. Concerns in the short to medium term will be mobilization of deposit, because that's where the concern is, and a lot of people have already voiced their concern in terms of mobilization of deposit, but we don't see it as a big negative for the banks for not being able to mobilize deposit. So it's an investment opportunity from a long-term point of view. Again, a conservative target of 880 on State Bank of India, but numbers will tell us whether we have to revise it upwards or not. But definitely a good candidate in terms of investment. Mind you, friends, both these investment ideas from a long-term point of view, fundamental. You need to have longish time horizon, start at current levels, and possibly if you get opportunities in this consolidation of market or some kind of selling pressure on respective counters that we mentioned today, then that will be an opportunity to accumulate at lower levels. But definitely make a beginning from a small amount and then add to it at lower levels. Thank you very much for your patience hearing, and I'll see you again next week. Till then, please do take care of yourself. Bye-bye.